When I was a kid, I never got to read Tales of the Jedi, but it was something I was very aware of due to having read both the Jedi Academy trilogy and the Essential Guide to Characters. Tales of the Jedi was something I'd always wanted to get into, but I had no idea where to start and didn't want to experience the story out of order. I have most of the trades now, so I figured I'd start reading, and rather than read them in publication date, I thought I'd go with chronological order. We all know where the universe ends up, but by setting it so far in the past, the writers and artists could basically do anything they wanted as long as it didn't contradict the original trilogy. They could even have moved technology beyond what was in the original trilogy if they'd wanted to, as long as it was set back by the end of the saga. 5,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Republic has barely formed, and in fact it's still trying to make its first steps. Many planets are still unknown, many hyperspace routes are undiscovered, and there's not much connection between the known planets except this fledgling newborn Republic. This manages to give the story a really good sense of adventure and exploring the unknown, as is demonstrated by Gav and Jory Daragon. For the most part, I thought these two were absolute fucking idiots. But then again, if I travelled back 5,000 years on Earth, I don't think the average person would be as smart as the average person today. Having said that, Gav is as sharp as a marble, dumber than a bag of hammers, and more dense than a ton of bricks. I'd even go so far as to say he's more thick than Namir from Twilight Company. He constantly makes these stupid decisions that make no sense. Rather, he's just saying words and doing whatever comes out of his mouth. I think Gav Daragon is the first person in Star Wars to ever have space Tourette's. It's like his brain isn't connected to his body, and when he makes the decisions, it always leads to trouble. Jory is no better. She has the role of the submissive female victim in Golden Age of the Sith. She seems to be intelligent, constantly warning her brother against following the massive amounts of what can only be described as verbal diarrhea that spews from his face hole, but ultimately always chooses to do what he says, no matter how much trouble they've been in the past because of his ill thought out plans. It was the 90s and a kids comic, so people hadn't really pushed for strong female characters in these sorts of comics yet, and that's a shame because she seems to be so much more intelligent than Gav, so it would have been nice to see her take the reins and be in charge. Despite the brainlessness of these two though, the Golden Age of the Sith is actually really good, and the rest of the cast more than make up for their lack of intelligence. Empress Tita, while not having much face time in Golden Age of the Sith, is quite an important character. She's the ruler of one of the many systems that have united and joined the fledgling Republic. When news of the existence of the Sith Empire reaches her, she has the brains to immediately inform the Senate so they can start building defences against them. Of course they don't listen, but I liked her character, she seemed smart. There's mostly only two Jedi in Golden Age of the Sith, Oden and Mehmet Nadil. Oden is a knight who spends more time studying the history of the Jedi than actually going out to help people. At one point he tells his master how he would much rather read the history of the Jedi than make it. I liked this because it showed that even before the prequels came out and the comics that went along with it, there were different personalities in the Jedi. Some preferred history and hypothetical applications of the Force, while others preferred practical experience. It foreshadows how somewhere down the line the Jedi Order establishes different cores for different aspects. Oden also uses battle meditation near the beginning of the story, which surprised me. I've played Knights of the Old Republic, but since I hadn't read any of the Tales of the Jedi series, I thought it was something made up just for the game, so it's nice to be able to reference that even though the game came later. I don't think Mehmet Nadil had as much personality as Oden but he did strike me as someone with a bit more experience and someone who recognised that someone else with a lack of experience could learn from a bit of his own. It's not exactly the master and apprentice relationship, but still fits the mentor mould. Neither of the Jedi are in it much because most of the story follows Gav and Jory and their adventures, so the comic mostly takes place on Korriban. I thought the Sith were pretty cool, especially Naga Sadow. He seems to be the only Sith who's recognised the stagnant state of the Sith Empire and wants to push to expand their borders since the discovery of Gavin Jory and the existence of the Republic. Naga Sadow is a vicious, manipulative guy willing to kill his own master, his equals and his slaves to get what he wants. It's exactly the way a Dark Lord of the Sith should be, and I enjoyed his character. And of course, it's Star Wars, so there must be a Hutt somewhere. This time, it's Arba the Hutt, and I actually thought he was okay. Apart from his name, rather than being yet another clone of Jabba, Arba seems to be genuinely nice. He's still in control of things much the same way Jabba was, but Arba seems to have a conscience. He sees Gav and Jory's emotions and their struggle after their parents dying and go much easier on them than a normal Hutt would have. It's nice to have a variety in characters, especially when it's characters of the same species playing the same role. I'd always been intrigued by the art and style of the Tales of the Jedi series. I honestly thought nothing could be cooler than the original lightsabers, but reading the Essential Guide to Characters and the Essential Guide to Weapons and Technology, and seeing Nomi Sunrider with her lightsaber that looked like the blade was made from fire, I discovered the old style lightsabers and they looked amazing. There's something very cool about the change in design of the lightsabers for the Tales era, and they reminded me of the Dark Woman's hilt from Tales Volume 1. These lightsabers don't yet have a battery small enough to fit inside the hilt with the crystals, so the Jedi carry their power packs on their backs and connect it to their lightsabers with a cable when needed, and they look quite similar to the Ghostbusters power packs. I'm glad they weren't around for the Exar Kun era of Tales of the Jedi, but I like that they were in this because it serves to show how much times have changed, not just between the time of Naga Sadow and the Rebellion era, but also how much has changed by the time of Exar Kun 1,000 years later. It gives a sense of the technology and the galaxy evolving over time, which I like. I thought the art was fantastic, and I think that's because of the combination of the pencils and the artistic styling of the setting. Since Golden Age of the Sith is set 5,000 years before A New Hope, they went with an ancient Egyptian style for everything, and it really works. It feels more primitive, but at the same time it still feels like Star Wars. I never looked at a frame and felt like it wasn't Star Wars in the past. Every page and every frame felt like ancient Star Wars, and that's exactly what it's meant to be, so I really think they made the right choice for the influence. The Egyptian styling lends itself so well to this era. From the tombs of the ancient Sith on Korriban, the slaves that are locked inside those tombs following an ancient archaic tradition, the clothes people wear both in the Republic and Sith space, the decor and even the ships that have sails. I generally dislike when ships in space have sails. I know they're solar sails, but I still don't like them. But I thought the styling was so good I couldn't hate it this time. I wanted to, but I couldn't. They looked like they belonged on the ship because of the way the ship was designed, and even if the sails didn't do anything physically, they still looked like the sails could be used to identify other ships. I just think the art combined with the Egyptian influence was fantastic. The back of the book contains the usual stuff, a cover gallery and a little sketch gallery. It's pretty shit, and all 6 covers of the individual issues are contained to just 2 pages. I would have preferred each issue in the book to start with its cover page, because apart from being easier to know where you are in the book and when you've read an entire issue, it would have shown off the covers, which I really think they deserve. I can't tell what the medium used for the covers was, but they look brilliant, and I think it's a shame to limit them to a quarter of a page each. So overall, I thought Golden Age of the Sith was excellent. Kevin J. Anderson did a great job with the story and explaining the state of the Republic and the Sith Empire, and even the technology, and apart from Gav and Jory's combined stupidity, the overall plot and characters were fun to read. The plot, combined with the artwork and the styling, was just the cherry on the cake for me, and I absolutely cannot wait to read The Fall of the Sith Empire to conclude this arc of the Tales of the Jedi era, then move on to the classic Knights of the Old Republic era.